There is a rhythm to life, subtle, unspoken, yet constant. Beneath the chaos, behind the noise, there exists a pulse, a divine cadence that binds us all. Sometimes it roars like a storm, and other times it barely whispers through the quiet corners of our days. But it is always there, guiding, shaping, pulling us gently toward something we don't yet fully understand. We are not lost. We are being composed. Every detour, every failure, every moment of stillness is a measure in the symphony we are meant to play. And though we often wish for clarity, the music of life is not written in straight lines. It rises, it falls, it pauses. And in those pauses, in the silence we often mistake for emptiness, something sacred is taking place. The conductor hasn't forgotten you. You are part of something vast, something holy. So listen closely, because sometimes the only way to truly move forward is to lock the FCK in. Most people don't even realize they're drifting. It doesn't feel like anything dramatic. It's subtle, like waking up one day and realizing you're not exactly where you thought you'd be, but you can't remember when you stepped off course. You're busy. Sure, you're doing things, making moves, but there's no anchor, no direction, just motion. And somewhere deep down, there's this quiet ache that whispers, there has to be more than this. And there is. But here's the thing, you don't stumble into meaning, you arrive at it. You choose it. Life doesn't hand us purpose like a gift. It reveals it only when we decide to meet it halfway. And most of us are waiting for the right moment, the perfect sign, the guaranteed outcome, waiting to feel ready. But waiting doesn't get you there. Drifting never gets you there. Drifting never gets you there. At some point, you have to plant your flag in the ground and say, this is who I am. This is where I'm going. See, locking in isn't a performance. It's not about hustling harder or pushing until you collapse. It's a state of being, a quiet, unwavering decision to be here fully. To stop living your life like a placeholder version of the real thing. And to step into it, messy, unfinished, unsure, but in it is this illusion we've bought into, that we're meant to have all the answers first. That once the path is clear, we'll be ready to walk it. But purpose doesn't work that way. Purpose isn't discovered in clarity, it's discovered in commitment. The moment you stop asking the world who you are and start telling it. The moment you decide to arrive, right here, right now, as yourself, not as a draft or a delayed version. I think we forget that presence is power, and when you drift, you lose your presence. You dilute your impact. You say yes to everything and end up belonging nowhere. But when you lock the FCK in, when you stop scattering your attention, your energy, your soul, you become undeniable. You become anchored. People feel it. The world responds to it. Because nothing is more magnetic than a person who has decided who they are and where they're headed. But to arrive, truly arrive, you have to give up the fantasy that something out there will save you. No opportunity, no person, no perfect timing is going to do what only your presence can. Your presence is the invitation. Your presence is the commitment. It's you telling the universe, I'm ready now. Not perfect, not complete, but present, and that's enough. Maybe life isn't about finding yourself at all. Maybe it's about choosing to show up for yourself again and again, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's uncertain, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Because what's on the other side of that commitment isn't just success or accomplishment. It's integrity. It's alignment. It's the quiet knowing that you're no longer drifting, you're driving. And where you're going isn't random. It's rooted. It's intentional. It's yours. Every day you have the chance to arrive, to stop floating and to start showing up with both feet planted in your life. And no, you don't get to control how fast it all happens. But that's not your job. Your job is to show up, to lock in, to live like you're meant to be here, because you are. So if you've been drifting, this is your invitation to stop. Not tomorrow, not when things slow down. Now, decide who you are. Decide what matters. Decide that your life is worth being fully awake for, not just existing in, but present in, fully, fiercely, with everything you've got. Because the current will keep pulling. The noise will keep calling. But the moment you anchor yourself with intention, everything starts to shift. That ache starts to quiet. The fog starts to lift. Because you've stopped waiting to be chosen by life. You've chosen yourself. And that's the first move, not louder, not faster, just deeper. Arrive fully, and everything else will meet you there. We tend to think of focus as this intense, almost violent thing, like you have to grit your teeth and bulldoze your way through life just to stay on track. We imagine it as force, as tension, as pressure. But real focus, the kind that actually creates something lasting, isn't born from force. It's born from faith, from trust, from presence. It's about learning to be here, fully here, without needing to wrestle with every doubt or control every outcome. It's not about shouting over the noise of life. It's about quieting yourself enough to hear what matters underneath it. Focus is presence and presence is power. Now I know that sounds simple, but in a world built to keep us distracted, choosing to stay present is an act of rebellion. Our attention is constantly being hijacked. Notifications, deadlines, other people's expectations, our own inner critic. It's relentless. But here's the truth. You can't build anything meaningful while you're divided. You can't hear your own wisdom when your mind is always somewhere else. Locking in isn't about pushing harder. It's about pulling yourself back to now. Again and again and again. Because right here in this moment is the only place anything real can happen. You can't change your life in the future. You can only change it in this breath, this choice, this conversation. The future you want doesn't arrive someday like a gift. It's shaped in the ordinary now. In what you choose to give your attention to, your energy to, your heart to, today. But here's the catch. We don't trust the now. We think we have to strategize our way into peace. We try to micromanage the journey. We mistake worry for responsibility. But worry is just fear rehearsing failure. It doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you scattered. What you really need isn't more control. It's more trust. Trust in your values. Trust in your process. Trust that showing up fully, even without certainty, is the most courageous and productive thing you can do. And I get it. It's vulnerable. Because presence makes you feel everything. The joy, yes, but also the discomfort, the fear, the grief, the doubt. And so we run, we multitask, we numb, we fill the silence. But you can't become who you're meant to be if you're not willing to feel what you're meant to feel. Focus means staying when it's tempting to flee, listening when it's easier to talk, choosing one path when 100 doors are calling. I once heard someone say that wherever your attention goes, your life follows. And it's true. Attention is your vote for what matters. So the question is, what are you voting for? What are you giving your life to, moment by moment, click by click, thought by thought? Because those little fragments, those unnoticed moments, that's your life. That's your legacy. And if you're not intentional, those moments will be spent on things that never deserved you. When you truly lock in, not out of panic or pressure, but out of presence, you begin to move differently. You listen more closely. You speak more deliberately. You connect more deeply. Your life stops being a reaction and starts becoming a response. And there's a big difference. Reactions are fast, anxious, defensive, but responses come from alignment, from clarity, from depth. And yes, it takes practice. It takes daily decisions to turn off the noise and tune in. It takes saying no to things that might be urgent but aren't important. It takes building the muscle to return, again and again, to what actually matters. But the reward is a life you recognize, a life that reflects your values, a life you don't have to escape from because you're living it, intentionally, honestly, wholly. So don't fall into the trap of thinking you need to hustle your way to peace. You don't need to force your way into a meaningful life. You just need to be here long enough to notice it. The people who live the most lit up lives aren't the ones doing the most. They're the ones paying the deepest attention. The ones who've made peace with the present and have decided to live from it, not race through it. That's focus, not effort, not control, but presence. The kind that says, I trust this moment, I trust myself in it, and I'm not going anywhere.
We live in a world obsessed with outcomes.
Because the greatest act of strength in a scattered
success by
world
what we can
is to
prove,
stay.
display, and post. It's all about the win, the title, the number, the spotlight moment.
And somewhere along the way, we start to believe that if we don't have something to show for our effort immediately, we must be doing something wrong. But here's the truth. Progress doesn't always look like progress. Sometimes it looks a stillness. Like long, quiet days where nothing seems to be moving, and everything inside you is questioning whether you've made the right choice. It looks like practice without applause. Like showing up when no one's watching. Like building brick by brick when it feels like no one else is even looking at the foundation. But those are the moments that matter most. Because anyone can show up when it's easy. Anyone can ride the wave when momentum is carrying them forward. The real question is, will you still show up when it's slow? When it's quiet? When the voice in your head is louder than any external validation? That's what it means to lock in, not just to the vision, but to the process. To trust that the long route isn't a detour, it's the actual road. To understand that the seasons where you're not being seen are often the seasons you're being shaped, and shaping takes time. Roots grow in darkness. Mastery happens in repetition. Depth comes from devotion, not speed. And I get it. It's hard, as we crave reassurance. We want signs that we're close, that we're on track. But the truth is, the most significant shifts often happen long before you can see the results. The inner work, the quiet discipline, the daily integrity, it's the real compounding interest. And most people abandon it right before the breakthrough. Not because they're weak, but because they didn't understand what they were building. You're not just chasing goals, you're becoming someone. And becoming someone doesn't happen overnight. It happens in the days you don't feel like it, but show up anyway. It happens in the work no one sees, the character you build when there's no trophy at the end, the patience you practice when there's no timeline attached. Progress is messy. It doesn't move in straight lines. You can have a week of deep focus and still feel like you're standing still. You can put in your best effort and not see the payoff right away. But none of that means it's not working. It just means the roots are still growing, and that's the part we have to reclaim. The sacredness of the unseen, the dignity of the small step, the value of showing up, not for the recognition, but because you said you would, because it matters to you. Because your life isn't a performance, it's a promise to yourself to stay in it, to keep building, even when it's not glamorous. There's something deeply powerful about a person who stays committed to the work, even when the world isn't clapping. It says, I know who I am. I know why I'm doing this, and I don't need constant proof to keep going. It's in those stretches of silence that the real you is being formed. Not the polished version, not the curated image, but the grounded, disciplined, deeply aligned version. The version that doesn't need momentum to stay faithful. The version that doesn't quit just because it's taking longer than expected. Because the reality is, if you can't stay the course when it's quiet, you'll never hold the weight of what's coming when it gets loud. If you can't handle the obscurity, you'll fumble the spotlight. The slow seasons aren't punishment, they're preparation. They're grace. They're grace. So when you feel like nothing is happening, when you're doing the right things and still facing resistance, that's not a sign to give up. That's a sign you're exactly where you need to be. You're in the work. You're in the growth. You're in the growth. You're in the middle of becoming. And I know that's not easy. But here's the gift. When you learn to love the process, when you find peace in the progress you can't yet measure, you become unstoppable because you're no longer addicted to the outcome. You're anchored in the journey. That kind of presence, that kind of persistence, that changes everything. So if you're waiting for a sign that it's working, this is it. Keep going. The roots are growing, even if you can't see them yet. We all say we want purpose. We crave clarity, we chase alignment. But the moment we start to pursue something that actually matters to us, something real, something personal, we start to feel the resistance. And not just from the outside world, though that will absolutely come, but from within. Suddenly we question ourselves more. We doubt more. We hesitate. More. We hesitate. Because the more meaningful the pursuit, the more vulnerable it feels to chase it. And here's the part no one tells you. Alignment isn't comfortable. It's disruptive. It doesn't quietly fit into your life. It reshapes it. Because once you start to live in integrity with who you really are, you can't keep pretending. You can't keep saying yes to things that drain you. You can't keep staying silent when your values are screaming. You can't keep playing small just to make other people comfortable. That's what it means to lock in, not just to focus your time or energy, but to root yourself so deeply in your values that everything else becomes negotiable. That kind of alignment doesn't happen by accident. It's not a revelation. It's a choice. A daily decision to close the gap between what you say matters and how you actually live. But that decision has a cost. Because when you begin to live in alignment, you will start to lose things. You'll lose approval. You'll lose convenience. You might even lose relationships you thought would last forever. And that's hard. Of course it is. But what you gain is something infinitely more valuable. You gain clarity. You gain peace. You gain the kind of grounded confidence that can't be shaken by someone else's opinion. Living in alignment isn't about perfection. It's not about having all the answers or always getting it right. It's about having the courage to check in with yourself, to ask in every decision, in every conversation, Is this honest? Is this me? Or am I compromising just to keep the peace? Because here's the thing, peace at the cost of your truth isn't peace. It's quiet resentment, and that resentment grows. You don't have to burn your life down to live in alignment. You just have to stop lying to yourself about what fits. Stop pretending that things are finey when your gut knows better. Alignment starts with honesty, and honesty is hard, but it's also healing. We're so used to fitting into boxes, labels, expectations. We're taught to contort ourselves just enough to be accepted. But your life wasn't meant to fit. It was meant to expand, to stretch, to take up space in the world exactly as you are, not as some filtered version of you. Alignment is permission, not just to be seen, but to see yourself fully for who you really are and what you really value. And once you begin to live that way, something shifts. You start making decisions from a deeper place. You stop chasing things just because they look good on paper. You begin to prioritize depth over appearance, integrity over image, truth over trends. And ironically, that's when things begin to flow. Not because life gets easier, but because you become more whole. The friction between your outer life and your inner values begins to dissolve. You stop living two versions of yourself, the one you present and the one you hide. The one you hide. And when those two selves finally align, that's when you access real power. But again, it's not a one-time epiphany. It's a commitment. Alignment is maintenance. It's asking the hard questions. It's pausing before reacting. It's reflecting before deciding. And most of all, it's having the humility to course correct when you drift. Because you will drift. We all do. What matters is whether you come back. So ask yourself, where are you out of alignment? Where are you performing instead of living? What are you clinging to that no longer reflects your truth? And more importantly, what would your life look like if it did reflect it? Because when you lock into your own values, fully unapologetically, you begin to live with a kind of clarity that no algorithm can feed you, no mentor can hand you. What ipsar? It's born from within. It's not louder, it's truer. And once you taste it, you'll never go back to the noise. So here's the invitation. Stop trying to become something and start remembering who you already are. That's alignment. That's the power of locking in. Just to a goal, but to your soul. And once you do, everything else begins to move in rhythm.